Assalamu alaikum ji, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. मेरा नाम है सालिम रहमान. Thank you for joining us on today's Facebook live session. हमारी जो आज गेस्ट ज्वाइन कर रही हैं मेहताब लशारी हैं. अस्सलाम वालेकुम मेहताब.
Assalamu alaikum, Salem. Am I
You can hear me,
audible?
right? Okay,
Alaikum.
yes, you're audible. Perfect.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you for taking out the time and joining us. So Mehtab, if you allow, in typical sequence जो हम follow करते हैं, we'll just come back and introduce you right after a brief introduction video of what Noor International University is about, and we'll be right back with our audience to follow up with the rest of the session. So admin team, over to you. Great, thank you जी and welcome back. लीजिए हम आज अपने गेस्ट मिस मेहताब लशारी की इंट्रोडक्शन करवाते हैं. Mehtab Lashari is a senior executive with over 14 years of experience in the tech industry in Europe, Middle East, and Southeast Asia markets. For the last 3 years, she's been heading the sales operation team at Cisco Systems, covering 10 countries in the Southeast Asia region. She's been instrumental in driving the company's growth in the region by leading her team with a structured approach in sales planning, KPI management, and aligning sales resources to key growth areas. Ms. Mehtab is a strong advocate of inclusion and diversity at the workplace and contributes her spare time to mentoring early career women and startup entrepreneurs to grow and build their skills to be courageous leaders of tomorrow. Mehtab, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for that very kind introduction, Salem. And it's a great honor for me to be here speaking to the NIU community today. And I know you were briefing me earlier about the background of NIU, and one thing which I do want to mention is that there's a strong association I have with NIU, given your background with Papa Memorial, where I was born. So we're kind of coming back full circle. So yeah, really happy to be here today and share a bit about my professional journey with the audience here.
Awesome. So already, mashallah, thank you for sharing that that great bond with us. I think it's good to hear FMH figures in your life and of course has made your life possible. So as to say, we will take full credit on that. And in the meantime, Mehtab, let's begin our session for today formally. If you could share with us, mashallah, you've had a very diverse, varied career in the tech industry in particular. Lekin, perhaps you could share just in a few minutes your brief professional journey, which brings us to today, to where we see you on the screen.
Absolutely. So I would go back to the time where I graduated from my MBA, where I was studying at LUMS. And at that time, you know, my passion was marketing and brand management. And so, you know, this is the thing about plans. Plans evolve, they change. You know, what I'm doing right now is something very different from those initial aspirations. So what it so happened that, you know, during that time, before most of the FMCGs had come for their recruiting drives, Cisco was one of the early companies who came to LUMS for their hiring. And coming from a non-tech background, I didn't know much about Cisco. So I did my research. And I found out there was one of the top 10 best companies to work for in the world. And then, the second reason which really propelled me to it was doing, seeing them and then as the leader of networking and routing and switching. It's, the kind of forefront at all the innovation. So that really attracted me. So in terms of the program structure, it was a 1-year management trainee program in Amsterdam. It was called the Cisco Sales Associate Program. And I went ahead and applied for it. Coming from a non-technical background, I was, I had a bit of doubts, will I get in? But I'll just give it my best shot because this seems like a great company to work. So after a very competitive hiring process, I was selected as one of the 150 associates from 44 countries across the globe. So our cohort included Latin America, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. By the end of the program, I was part of the top 10% performers in the program. And not only was that an incredible personal achievement for me, but because I was representing Pakistan, as I was being trained to come back to the Pakistani sales team, it was a great honor to achieve that. So then after the graduation on the program, I would like to mention, and this is where I do encourage people to go for management training programs if the organization that you're applying to has one, because there were two big benefits which I got. The first one is that in a safer environment, you get access to a lot of sales, to a lot of training. And in my case, it was sales and technical skills. And the second aspect of it is, getting access to an alumni network. And that's something incredibly powerful. So it's almost like the extension of a university. So, university contacts always help you when you're working, in your career journey. And in my case, this additional experience also helped me a lot beyond the time that even we, some of the people left the company, but a bond and leaning on each other stayed true even after that. So after that period, I worked in sales for some time. And then eventually I found my calling in sales operations. So sales operations, for those here who are not familiar with what it means or what it entails, so essentially the work of sales operations is to enable sales team to sell more efficiently, to help them strategize, to provide them strategic direction, and also to streamline sales processes. And it's a very integral central function because you're at the heart of working with many different teams within the organization. I almost call it the engine of the sales organization because we're working closely with HR, with finance, pretty much you're in the know. So for someone who wants to start out a career in tech, I do recommend as sales operations as one of the areas to work in if you really want to get a feel of how everything works together. Sure. So then after that, after working in sales operations in Pakistan, covering the Gulf Middle East region for some time, I moved to Malaysia. And then I moved around in a couple of roles until, as you mentioned, for the last 3 years, I was covering the ASEAN region, also known as Southeast Asia, and managing a team covering that, covering sales operations for there. And then for the last 2 months, I have moved back to Pakistan, and it's a bit early to comment on the next chapter and my plans at the road ahead. So we will leave it at that at this point.
Inshallah. Thank you. Thank you for being very candid and filling in the gaps of some of your what we may not have covered during your profile view. And मैं आपसे बिल्कुल I'll echo your sentiment. I myself had the good fortune of being part of a management trainee program in the US as I graduated college. बाकी आपने सही कहा कि it gives you a great networking pool who are in exactly the same boat as you, and as you graduate from the management trainee program, आपके साथ एक वो group निकलता है पूरा, which then becomes your secondary alumni at the company, and then they really go far and wide. So you can really tap into your particular alumni class to follow up. So I had a fantastic experience, and मैं बिल्कुल इस पे, as I said, I echo my sentiments that if any opportunity comes along for good companies, the fact that they have management training program means that they're fostering the benefit of having new people coming, unko train karke unko ready karte hain for facing new challenges, almost in a way to recognize, so as to say, or rewire the fresh graduates जो अभी उनके brains हैं, and they're wiring to hit the world in a better place. ये बताइए, Mehtab, if you can just share with us, our topic for today is women in leadership and some of the challenges that you have. Would you be able to brief us about the current gender inequality Sorry, Mehtab, you're back.
I lost the connection for just a few seconds. So you'll have to repeat the last line.
Sure. So मैं कह रहा था कि so we talked about some of the benefits that I'd gone through in the new college graduate management training program. मैं ये request करने लगा था कि given that our topic for today is about women in leadership, the fact that you've mentored a lot of women leadership, what can you share as your personal take on gender inequality in specific to perhaps the tech industry as a whole? Well, maybe the employment industry as a whole, whether here in Pakistan, let's say in Asia in general, abroad, elsewhere, and then in tech in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a topic which is very near to my heart. So I can talk hours on this, but I'll try to keep it brief because we do have quite a few areas to cover in this session. So I would say in the context of, and tech is no exception, right? Generally, we still have a long way to go in terms of creating equality, both in terms of like having diverse teams, but also pay equality is also a big topic. So, there's a lot of work to be done when we talk about IT in the context of Pakistan. Even till now, there's only 15% of the IT workforce is women in Pakistan, 15. And for me, that was astounding because I get the perception that there are a lot of more women in tech in Pakistan. But 15% is just a scratch of the surface as far as I look at it. Especially since, tech industry offers a lot of opportunities for women specifically. Like there's a lot of, there's flexible hours. There's a host of opportunities. You can work remotely. Most tech companies offer those kind of facilities. So for me, it was ironic to see, the number is so low. And then if you look at the leadership level, the numbers are even worse. And I don't have the specific numbers for IT. I wanted to find them, but generally women in leadership in Pakistan are only 5% of senior leaders are women. Right. So some may argue this is much better than before, but again, there's a long road ahead. And now the question is, why is there, so much, why isn't there enough women working in tech? What is the reason for that? So one of the reasons is that there's not enough role models out there. So obviously, if you only have 15% there, then, who is really attracting more women to come into this space? The second, and for the related to the role models, I would say it's also having relatable role models, because now the world is a very small place. You can go online, you're on YouTube, TikTok, wherever. So you have access to a lot of people outside Pakistan and what they have to say on certain subjects. But we don't have enough relatable Pakistani women role models, and they're there. But I think we need to provide more platforms, and they need to be given more airtime. So that's really one of the simple truths there, right? The second one is more work needs to be done to attract female talent. This is also one of the areas where we fall short, where there's still a perception and hesitation from recruiting teams. And, it's a chicken egg situation. Like if your hiring team is not diverse, then they're going to hire people who look like them, right? So if your hiring team is predominantly men, they're obviously going to feel more comfortable working with other men. So there's a lot of things that need to be done. Now I'm talking about more on the solutioning aspect of it.
Sure.
That there's a lot of work that needs to be done both from the organizations and also from women to solve this problem. So
right.
When it comes to organizations, what they need to do is, coming to the earlier point, when you're hiring people, have a diverse hiring panel. And some of the big multinational companies in the world, I mean, this is something which is part of their hiring procedures. And I think this is one area where Pakistan, there's some catching up that needs to be done. The second thing is providing platforms to women. As I mentioned, they're not getting enough platforms. You see a lot of conferences on tech, and it's all men panel, and you'll see one woman in between if you're lucky. But it's not like you don't have enough people who are doing great work out there. But again, it comes to sort of people gravitating towards similar, those who look and feel the same way, who look the same way. So I think that's what we need to do. And for organizations, the diversity should not be a checkbox exercise. Okay, hum log ye hamari charter hai, we believe in inclusion and diversity. They need to practice it at all levels of the organization. So even when it comes to to meetings, etc., if you see that people are holding back, they're not speaking up, they need to step in. It's the role of the leader, the manager, whoever is has the seat at the table to enable and encourage those voices to speak up. So so that's, I think, in a nutshell, my views on gender inequality.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing and again for your candor. आपने बिल्कुल सही, I think, 2 points पे hit किया कि especially here for Pakistan, I think not having enough role models or relatable role models is definitely something which has taken a hit in terms of having impact in this particular area. और दूसरी आपने बात की कि generally the tech industry is known for allowing remote work, being more flexible, and I would hope and imagine that with COVID and hopefully now mostly of it being behind us, work from home, working remotely has become a reality which is embraced by even more people across other industries other than tech as well. So one would hope कि वो भी further इसको we can foster that spirit. And then I think you're right, the hiring team does have a really important role to play, and it's more of following that principle and spirit and actually inculcating an atmosphere where the interviewing panel is diverse in true letter and spirit. So as I was briefing you before the session, alhamdulillah, at Noor FMS, we're proud to say that we are primarily a women-led set of institutions, and we're proud to say that we probably outweigh the female participation is greater than the male participation in terms of employees, in terms of student body. So we're embodying that. If I can now,
that's brilliant. You're walking the talk.
Thank you. Yes, walking the walk, talking the talk, and hopefully, inshallah, we hope to continue that. If I may, Mehtab, मैं अगर आपसे पूछ सकूं कि आपने multiple geographies में काम किया है, and interestingly, amongst Asia, of course, you worked in Pakistan, you worked in Malaysia. We touched a little bit more on the geographies that you worked at. You've worked with the US company, which has its own diversity and inclusion regulatory and perhaps frameworks that they embody. What particular challenges have you seen, let's say, in other countries? I would be particularly interested about Malaysia because it would be an interesting parallel to Pakistan, being in Asia, being, let's say, somewhat predominantly Muslim-oriented. Does that seem to kind of figure in there somewhere? उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा अगर आप हमें बता सकें.
No, I'm glad you asked that question because obviously when you're working with people from different cultural backgrounds, you try to draw parallels, and you try to see what are some of the learnings that we can take, or what are some things that we're doing well which we can replicate. So in the context of Malaysia, even though I was based in Malaysia, most of the work that I did was with the regional teams with Southeast Asia. But generally, one thing which I find, and this is not specific to gender, is that the power distance in that part of the world, surprisingly for me, is a lot less as compared to Pakistan. So, and not just Pakistan, in some ways, even when you compare it with Europe. So managers and like leaders and organizations, they tend to be more approachable. They can be a friendly, candor, friendly demeanor. And so that's something, obviously, it makes working a lot easier and better and more fun, more enjoyable. And when in the context of women working, the challenges that women face, I would say it's similar, similar situation in different geographies. So even though like Malaysia is a Muslim country, they are there's a lot of diversity there, and it's more of a secular country in that respect.
Correct.
So I find the challenges that women face working in organizations, it's quite similar, in the places that I work for. So there's, and that's why I think that community aspect is important, because we can really lean on and share stories, because there's a lot that we can relate with each other, even if we're working in different parts of the world.
Fantastic. Again, thank you for sharing. And I think you're right, Kay, sometimes we the parallels that we're trying to draw are more stereotypical in our minds. Perhaps हम उसके lens कर लेते हैं, where we're trying to find parallels which may not exist necessarily and might compromise our own judgment. Thank you again for sharing.
And to be fair, I will add on that I've moved back to Pakistan after 10 years, so I have yet to settle down, and maybe I will start to see the differences, because a lot has changed in that time period.
It really has. No, and inshallah, I hope you see that as a positive change. Of course, change, unfortunately, can sometimes be for the worst, but I hope that there will be positivity in the lens that you put on and see Pakistan good now. Mehtab, let's segue into something that you start talking about, and I'm glad you did, because instead of trying to talk about the problems, you already started to identify solutions. जब आपने opening question के ऊपर focus किया, तो मैं अगर आपसे पूछूं that hindsight is 2020, looking back at your educational career and to where you are today, mashallah, an accomplished professional, आप क्या suggest कर सकती हैं to potential students, whether they be male, female, they're young minds, they're pursuing their education, higher education, and at a stage now where they'll be hitting professional life, they may have yet another pivot, let's say in a capstone degree like an MBA or another master's. Anything that you think back and say कि मुझे ये पता होता sitting here now that I would have done, let's say 15, 20 years earlier. What are the top, let's say, 2 or 3 things that come to mind in terms of the where you've been able to excel and what you may want them to draw upon in today?
A lot of things. Again, I will try to condense it. So one of the areas which I incidentally bumped on it, and now it has become very structured, is that earlier in my career, I didn't have focus enough on having formal mentors and sponsors. So I want to also touch a bit about sponsors more, because I feel that's one area which a lot of people are not familiar about. Mentors, everyone talks about mentors, but let's talk about mentors first. So the areas that you want to grow and develop, whether it is a technical skill or it could be some soft skills that you want to hone, seek out mentors. And even in your university, it could be look around yourself and build a network of people that you want to learn from. have that formal mentorship experience, because that's a lot that I've learned. And the mentors that I had early in my career, I didn't seek them out, they sought me out. And but I'm glad that they did, because they played a very central role in my career development. So now that's one thing which I would have played a more active role if I have to look back. The second piece of it, as I mentioned, was sponsors. So what is sponsors? We're not talking about marketing sponsorships, in case anyone is wondering. So the difference between a mentor and a sponsor is someone who has a seat at the table, who's in a position of decision making. So ideally, it's someone in an organization who's at least 2 levels above you. And those are the people who decide, promotions and raises, and pretty much those bigger conversations. And again, the first time that I got a sponsor, I was doing all the things right in my career. I was working hard. I was, building my credibility, doing the hustle, but I didn't have sponsors. And the moment I had sponsors is when I find that my career trajectory changed, because you need people, and I think women also need that, especially in some ways, that visibility, that you need someone who is really advocating for what you're doing, because sometimes not all the work that you're doing is going to be visible. And so that's something which I really encourage people to be very conscious in finding both mentors and sponsors when they're having their career. I would say that sponsors are more relevant after you have worked a few years in the organization, because before that I would spend time in building your credibility. The other thing I would say is networking. Networking is extremely important, right? And so when you're building that network, how do you build that network? Do a lot of internships. So this is one thing which I did, but I wish I even did more of it. So even when I was doing my A levels, I did, internships whenever I would have the chance. Don't get hung up about like, oh my God, how much am I going to get paid? Like, work for free, like just, it's an internship at the end of the day, right? So if it's something that you really want to learn, just go ahead and apply. And there are a couple of advantages with internship. One is that it gives you a flavor of the kind of work that you think that you might enjoy without committing fully to it. It's just a few weeks in, or maybe a month in internship. The second benefit that it offers you is that you get to know people. So even before you start your career journey, you're starting to build a network of people who can see what you're doing, and one thing leads to another. So that's something which is really useful. And then it also helps you relate your education to the real world. So I know that many universities have, like, as part of their mandated internship, my suggestion to people is look beyond that. Whenever you have an opportunity, there are many semester breaks which are peppered in your full year. So just use that opportunity to have as many internships as you can.
Very cool. Thank you. I think all three things are very, very useful, and will definitely help students, I guess, make up their minds in terms of what they want to do, what they want to pursue. It's a time where I think, unfortunately, in Pakistan, हमारी बहुत कभी-कभार blinders हमने पहने होते हैं, because we have very rigid ideas in terms of where we want to go. And I think the education system is evolving also, higher education in particular, to go into a little bit more general education as you start your program, so that agar aapne koi change karna ho, shift karna ho, you should have the opportunity to go ahead and do that, which is something that I think the US education system has really been able to inculcate well, is to drive that analytical mind and allow undeclared major for years on end. I still remember my 7-8 saal purane student bhi the, an undergraduate, but more power to them, they were still figuring their way out. So bilkul, I think seeking mentors, getting sponsors, and I think the distinction between sponsor and mentor, about a sponsor being somebody who has a seat at the table, is distinctly great. And yes, networking with internships and relevant internships, or even irrelevant ones, just for something to get you a flavor, I think is extremely important. ये बताइए मेहताब कि Oh, sorry, I didn't realize we have a few audience questions as well. I'll just pick a couple. I want to make sure that we do this. Somebody from the audience has asked, the IT field generally assumes that they're not very highly paid for females. Any views on this impression? That's the question. Is that a myth, or is that truth?
I think that's not something which is specific to IT. So we spoke about pay inequality, right? That's something which impacts all industries, and IT is no exception. I think it is getting harder though, because there's a lot more, even though the organizations are not being transparent about it, but you have a lot of access to information. So you go on Glassdoor, you go on different forums online, and you can even, there are even Facebook communities where people sort of find out and crowdsource information. So I think it is it's not something which is specific to IT. Yes, pay inequality is there, but it's harder to do now.
Sure. Thank you. The question I was going to ask originally was related to, like you mentioned, Kay, of course, we have hiring teams on the receiving end who would need to be educated about creating employment opportunities for women. Notwithstanding that, if you were to be able to guide students, and especially women, to enter technology in today's world, are there any tips that you would share for them? What can they do to make themselves better prospects for entering a tech role?
Yeah. So I mentioned some of the tips earlier that applies to this as well. But what I would say is the speed of innovation is very fast in IT. So, keep up with the latest trends, because that's going to be your superpower. Like, even though I would say that this generation is incredibly lucky that, we have information at our fingertips, but you would be surprised at how few people actually leverage that and, use it to their benefit. So just like declutter, have your goals and say, okay, these are the areas and skills that I want to grow and develop. And then, you've got Udemy, you've got Coursera. And so now I'm talking about things beyond university, the skills that you can gain. And you can really have that self-driven enablement training journey for yourself. So that's one thing which you can do. The second thing I would say for women who want to join tech, like, find your tribe, find your community, because there's a lot of things that you can learn from other people. There's actually a really incredible Facebook group called, I hope I get the name right, Women in Tech PK. Join these kind of communities. You will find, what are the issues other women are facing in the tech field. When you have questions, pop them up. So as I mentioned, we're living in a very exciting time. We didn't have access to such support networks when we were starting out. So feel free to use that.
Awesome. And I think I'll definitely ask the admin team. We've noted Women in Tech PK, but agar aapko, if you do get a chance, Maliha from our office will definitely reach out. I think it'll be a useful forum for our some of our women students to take and have a sift through. I think any tool that can help them assimilate into the relevant field would be definitely helpful. Another question from the audience, which I think I had wanted to ask as well. So the general question is it necessary to have a computer science education to enter the tech industry? Is asked by Miss Shameen Ahmed. And in fact, generally, if you were to say, okay, is it a computer science degree, or are there particular degrees that you feel women or men can take in order to enter the gates of these big tech giants?
Yeah, so I think education, there's a formative education level that you talk about. So like having a good STEM base is always helpful when you're talking about earlier in your, education. But as you go on, you need to, as I mentioned, internships and sort of doing your research will help you realize what are the areas that excite you. So if you're really looking for a technical career, then yes, it is helpful to have a technical degree. Having said that, a lot of people who are like software developers, coders, they're teaching themselves stuff online. So, if that's the pathway that they choose at the end, there's always, that kind of courses that you can find, some for free, to hone those skills. And then on the other side is, if you want to have a non-technical career, which I have actually had in tech, um, you you don't need that STEM background, right? So I come from a humanities background, and it's really, how do you create a differentiation for yourself? And soft skills are something which, unless you're a back office person doing a back end technical role, is something which will always help you in your career. And so yeah, long answer to a short question is that no, you do not necessarily need a CS major, and the ways and pathways to land a career in tech without those.
Fantastic. And again, Mehtab, I will echo your sentiment entirely. I do agree कि as long as you've got that curiosity driving you, basic analytical skills, तो वाकई आप बहुत excel कर सकते हैं. And having those soft skills is something which cannot be stressed on enough. I think just to be successful in the professional world, no matter what profession you choose, I think अब इतने opportunities आए हैं for employers to check and to assess the competency and the basic skill levels. Communication skills, for example, being a core.
Absolutely,
skills
that's
being
a big
how
one.
you present yourself. Enough can't be said or stressed upon that particular skill set. So completely agreed, KG. CS education, let's say, may give you a base of a different sort, but आगे excel करने के लिए, I think really you can start from anywhere and enter these industries. And mashallah, sales ops being a core, I think that that is part of any organization, whether it be tech, manufacturing, FMCG, whatever the case may be. Fantastic.
And I think, Salem, you hit the nail on the head. One of the things which I want to add there is that sometimes we get really hung up on degrees, and it's really a door opener. And after the door is opened, your degree is an afterthought. And it's going to be prepared, like for people who are complaining right now that it's so tough for me to get my degree. Like, if you want to have a successful career, be prepared to be a lifelong student, right? You have to constantly upskill yourself. If you want to remain competitive, you have to stay abreast with the latest trends, evolve your skills constantly. So that's going to be your differentiator.
So this is a great segue into our final question for the session, because आपने already कहा है कि be prepared to be a lifelong student is not something that our existing students want to hear. They just want to say, give me my degree and let me get out of here. But my final question for you, Mehtab, and this is of course a question which we ask everybody. आपने बहुत सारी चीजें already share की अपने experiences के through. The question is simple, that again, you're addressing young students, some prospective students, current students, a few graduates which you've already had. Any message for them as they enter various parts of either their educational academic lives or their professional lives? Your words of wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, my message for the students is, first of all, and this might sound very cliched, but I really believe very strongly in this, is stay true to your values. And for those wondering, okay, what are my values? Go find out first what your values are. Because, I've found, whenever I'm in tough situations, whenever I find that, I'm not operating at my best level, is when my values are being compromised in any way. So for some people, they will draw a value system from their religion. If someone, for those who were, not following any religion, they will, obviously there's some universal values like honesty, integrity. So list out for yourself what your values are, and, always stay true to them. The second one, I would say, is have an abundance mindset. So abundance mindset, meaning, there is something for everyone out there. Or just say, we talk in Islam, ke har ek ka rizq likha hua hai. So healthy competition in university is, all good and fun, and that will always happen. But remember that, the people that you're studying with, this is going to be your network in the future, and really support each other through this journey. And this is the most powerful asset that you will have beyond the time that you graduate from university. So lean on each other, be supportive of each other, and share share information, because there's so much you can learn from each other. Like if someone is getting access to certain kind of jobs that they're hunting, there's so much that you can share in terms of best practices with each other. So yeah, those are the two parting thoughts I would leave the student body with.
And lovely. मैं बिल्कुल आपसे मुत्तफिक हूँ इस बात पे, दोनों बातों पे. And of course जो values की आपने बात की है, I think it's incredibly important कि आपने अपने गरेबान में झांक के देखना है and really dig deep कि आपकी हैं क्या values, because I still remember जब मैं अपना MBA कर रहा था तो पहले 3 दिन was just a course on ethics and to understand where your moral boundaries are, because that would then define you. Everybody's boundaries are different, but अगर आपकी वो boundaries कुछ हैं, no matter how blurred they might be, आपको लेकिन पता होती हैं कि वो boundaries क्या हैं. So as long as you remain true to yourself and not cross the boundaries that you set for yourself, one hopes that आपका वो moral compass जो है, it's guiding you in the right direction. Second चीज जो आपने कही है, I'm so happy कि आपने ये कही है, this mindset of abundance, and this is something which is very near to me, because unfortunately I feel कि हम as Pakistanis, we especially in the diaspora, इसको हम उस तरह से exploit नहीं करते जिस तरह से होने की जरूरत है, because perhaps it's insecurity, perhaps it's something innate which I think stops us from having that mindset. And I'm making a sweeping generality, lekin from my own group of friends, people around me, I've seen this time and again, whether it be here in Pakistan or this is not restricted to our geographic boundaries. हमारे अंदर एक चीज है, और वाकई मैं आज स्टूडेंट से कहूँगा कि जो भी हमें सुनेगा आज, later in the recordings, this having a mindset of abundance is truly a revolutionary thing. Once you get it's a gift, and I think giving back and selflessly, you'll be surprised at how little, if not at all, to lose you have by having this mindset. So fantastic. Sorry.
No,
for
absolutely no, and I find it was I hope I'm not digressing here, but in the 80s, up until 80s, before we have this information revolution, people would, it was like closely guarded trade secrets, so people would not share information with each other. So I wonder if that's some of the remnants of that we still have. But I couldn't agree with you more that yes, as a community, as a nation, there's a lot that we need to catch up as well. I have seen, there's a lot of times people not share with each other, and it's changing. It will take time, and that's something that we need to work on collectively,
inshallah. And of course, with leaders like yourself, women leaders like yourself, more power to you, kudos to you. We would like to thank you for your time, and of course, as you create this pivot for yourself, this transition period, we wish you the best of luck. And perhaps as you delve into whatever is next, if you can come and we can invite you to the university, inshallah, so you can address some of our students in person. We'll perhaps, if you allow, हम अपने students को encourage करेंगे to pick you on a one-on-one, just for a brief mentoring session. I'll take the liberty of maybe even having a Zoom session or a face-to-face session, whatever is most convenient with you.
I would love that. You're putting me on the spot here, but yeah, I would love it.
Fantastic. And we will definitely hit you up on the Women in Tech PK wala wo jo hai forum, agar aapko yaad aata hai exactly, so Maliha will follow up on our behalf on getting that
Absolutely.
forum right. And in the meantime, I'd like to again take the opportunity to thank you so much for your time on behalf of Noor International University, and looking forward to staying in touch.
Thank you, Salem and team. It was a pleasure. Allah Hafiz.
Take care. Assalamu alaikum.